Hello, my name is Mara, and welcome to Books Like Whoa. I stand before you at the beginning of a long journey. And that journey was occasioned by the fact that I was going through video ideas and trying to figure out what I was going to film next. And I realized that I hadn't yet done my Know Your Tropes video on sci-fi. So Know Your Tropes is a series that I do on my channel where I talk about the tropes that I do and don't like in different genres, and kind of use that as a window to like invite you to reflect on what you do and don't like in a genre, because I think that's really empowering to you as a reader if you can have like specific language around what you do and don't like, because you're much more likely to find books that you like if you can kind of name what it is that works for you and what doesn't work for you. That is also important. So I was sitting down to try to do that, and I realized that sci-fi is a genre that I don't really have a lot of concrete language around what I do and don't like. I like sci-fi, and I think I intuitively move towards things that I think will work for me, but I don't really have, like, I can't tell you like this kind of main character is like my favorite, or you know, I really prefer this kind of hard sci-fi, otherwise I want it to be like this. Like, I don't really have that language. So I was kind of thinking, okay, well, maybe in 2020 I can make it a point to read more sci-fi. And then I started seeing all the videos that come out towards the end of the year of people reading the Goodreads choice categories, which I've never really been too tempted to do, because the categories where I have a strong opinion almost never have books in them that I feel like the whole lineup is really representative of what's going on in the genre. So like the romance one, I'm always like, half of these should not be in here. That's how I feel about the mystery. I mean, like all of them. I don't tend to really agree with the things that go in there. So why would I do that to myself? So I've never been tempted to do that. But the thing that people complain about with the Goodreads Choice Awards is that it's really just a popularity contest. And it occurs to me that that's actually helpful for me in what I'm trying to do. Because in theory, the 2019 list of 20 finalists are based on some of the most popular books right now in sci-fi. So I thought, okay, well, maybe that would actually be a good way for me to just like get a good sampling of what is exciting to people right now in sci-fi. So with that in mind, I am embarking on a reading project where I'm going to read all 20 of those books. I have taken a peek at what ended up winning and what all is on the list, and I haven't dove too deep in it yet. I'm going to let you guys go on the journey. I will tell you that one of the books I've already DNF'd, so we'll talk about that. And then another one of the books is the fifth in a series, and the first book in that series was a book I was already wanting to read for 2020, so that's great. But other than that, most of these books I've heard of the author often, but I don't really have a lot of strong reactions to. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna read all of these books. I will say that if it is a book, so if the 2019 nominee is the, you know, second, third, fourth, fifth in a series or whatever, I'm not gonna start with that book. Instead, I will sub out the first book in that series. But other than that, I'm going to try to read all of them. And I'm excited to see, like I was saying, I think really what my goal by the end of this project is I would like to have more substantive language to talk about what I do and don't like in sci-fi, be more familiar with the language around what the different micro genres are, what some of the character tropes are, types of world building I do and don't like. That's my goal. So this is a vlog, so you will be seeing me come in and out at various points throughout the year. I am shooting to have this done by the end of the summer, but this might end up being a full year-long reading project. We'll just see kind of where the road takes us. So strap in for Operation Sci-Fi. Okay, we officially have my little listicle going. So I think when I recorded my intro, I kind of had an idea of what was on this list. I have since done a little bit more digging into exactly what is going to be on this list of 20 books that I read this year to get to know my sci-fi taste a little bit better. And I thought we could just kind of talk about like first impressions and overall trends that I see on this list. First impression is, most of these are books that I've either heard of or I've heard of the author and therefore have like some at least semi-positive association with. I think I'd have like a glancing knowledge of what some of these books actually are, and I've begun to acquire some of them. And in terms of just like first impressions, so first of all, only one of these books have I actually previously read, which was GIDEON the Ninth, which I DNF'd. I did that in 2019. We, by the way, are still in 2019. You can see the Christmas tree behind me, but I thought I would go ahead and get started on this since the whole list came out in December. But anyway, so this year I just actually recently DNF'd Gideon the Ninth, and I actually really didn't enjoy that one. It, however, was the third highest ranked one. Other first impressions in terms of like books I already had or books I was already interested in, Red Rising actually was already on my 20 books I want to read in 2020, and we'll get to how it made the list. So that was exciting. And then One Word Kill was a book that I already had on my TBR from Mark Lawrence because I really like Mark Lawrence's fantasy stuff in the Book of the Ancestor series. So those were the books that I already had. And I guess maybe we can just run through the ranking here. So in terms of the top 20, starting from the winner and working our way down to the least number of votes. So Recursion by Blake Crouch was the winner of the Goodreads Sci-Fi category. So that was number one, followed by, I think, Dark Age by Pierce Brown, which is the fifth in his like Red Rising big series. So instead of using that book, I'm using Red Rising because I don't want to start in the middle of a series for this. Number 3 was Gideon the Ninth, which we already talked about. Then number 4 was This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal, El-Mohtar, and who's the other author? Max Gladstone. And then The Deep by Rivers Solomon. Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey is number 6 on my list because there was one called Tiamat's Wrath that was actually number 6. So Leviathan Wakes is the first one in that series that I replaced it with. Then there's Machines Like Me by Ian McEwan. Exhalation by Ted Chiang. Number 9 was The Test by Sylvain Neuval. 10 was Fall or Dodge in Hell by Neal Stephenson. 11 was One Word Kill by Mark Lawrence. Number 12 was To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. 13 was Wanderers by Chuck Wendig. The City in the Middle of the Night was 14 by Charlie Jane Anders. And then number 15 was A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martine. 16 was THRAWN Treason by Timothy Zahn, which was like a Star Wars book. And so that was the third in the series. So I decided to go with the first one, which is just THRAWN. No idea who that is. I guess I'll find out. 17 was The Future of Another Timeline by Annalee Newts. 18 was Here and Now and Then by Mike Chen. 19, I think, was Children of Light or something. That was the second book in a series. So the first one was Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And number 20 was The Light Brigade by Cameron Hurley. So that is the list of books. In terms of like first impressions or thoughts about this. So there's very few of these that I'm just like, ugh, this like appeals to me 0%. I'm gonna say the one that probably appeals least to me, I'm gonna say maybe Fall by Neal Stephenson. I'm not totally sure what kind of book this is. I think it's some sort of like, I'm gonna call the genre human development, the subgenre of like somebody getting something implanted in their head and like making them more superhuman or something. I don't know. That one is just super fucking long. I think it's like almost 900 pages. And I just like the glancing read through of the summary did not appeal to me. So I would say that's the one I'm least interested in. Most interested in is Red Rising, just because I already had that on my list. In terms of like a book I hadn't heard about that I was most intrigued when I sort of did a quick summary read of the back of the book was definitely A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martine. I think it's some sort of like futurism, like maybe like a future world, but like based, it sounded like maybe in sort of like Aztec mythology or something. I don't know. Maybe I totally misread that. But then there's also like a murder mystery. Y'all know I'm a sucker for a murder mystery. So there's a few of these that have like a mystery component to them. So that kind of intrigued me. In terms of like themes I see in the ones that made this list, there are several that have to do with time travel. I'm gonna say time travel is not usually a favorite kind of component for me. So I'm gonna be interested to see how I do there. There are a lot of different kinds of dystopia, which does tend to be something I like. There's several of these that have some kind of mystery element to them along with the sci-fi, which like I was saying is something I think that can work pretty well for me. There is a lot more like truly like space stuff on here than I was I guess I don't know why I wasn't expecting that, but it seems to me like space stuff is not as popular as it used to be, but maybe it's just there's not as many breakouts from people who read a lot of sci-fi into the rest of us who just are like sort of more casual readers. Maybe I just am not aware of all of the space books that are happening, because actually now that I'm looking at these authors, I had heard of most of those space books. So maybe I just hadn't really, that was maybe just a wrong expectation on my part. Individual books that I have thoughts about. So The Deep by Rivers Solomon. So I'm really excited to see this on here just from like a representation standpoint, because River Solomon, I believe it's like non-binary. They use they, them pronouns, Black, and this is a story about the Black slave experience and like a take on it. That being said, I've not seen great reviews for this book, so that's one I'm kind of just interested to see how I do with it. Recursion, I'm interested just because Blake Crouch seems to be sort of a mixed bag, and I kind of got the impression that this one in particular, even people who liked Blake Crouch didn't necessarily think this was the best one from him, so I don't know, maybe, maybe not. I am intimidated by some of these big chunky ones, so I will tell you that I'm surprised that there's not more huge honkin' long ones. I was worried that that might happen. There's only a few that are more than 500 pages, but like Leviathan Wakes, Fall, Children of Time, a couple of the, and Wanderers by Chuck Wendig. Those are all like really long books, so I'm a little intimidated by them just by virtue of the fact of how long they are, though I have given myself permission to DNF if I need to. So this is gonna be my first full Ian McEwan, which is kind of an interesting way to encounter him for the first time, is in a sci-fi challenge. I DNF'd Atonement, don't tell anyone. So I'm hoping that this is one that I can actually get through, though I will say it has to do with like AI, which is also a subgenre of science fiction that I don't tend to love. So I don't know how I'll do with that. I'm very excited to see Exhalation on here from Ted Chiang, because that was one that was getting a lot of hype in sort of like non-sci-fi circles. I think he's sort of a crossover author that not just sci-fi readers tend to like. He's sort of more, I guess, like literary sci-fi. So I'm excited to have that one on here. The Test by Sylvain Neuval, I actually started because it was available at the library, and I put it down because it wasn't really grabbing me, but it's only 108 pages, so like it's not a big deal if I end up not liking that one so much. Let's see here, Becky Chambers, I'm wanting to start with her anyway, so kind of intrigued to get into that. Same with Chuck Wendig. So I like him as an online presence, but I've never read any of his stuff, so I think that will be interesting. I am definitely interested to come back to Star Wars books, because as a kid I totally read expanded universe novels. Like, what was the one that I loved? The one that I loved was called The Courtship of Princess Leia. Does anybody remember this cover? I remember rereading that like 4 or 5 times as a kid. So I read some of these when I was younger, but I haven't read any expanded universe in a very long time. I'm hoping if I do well with that one, it will inspire me to pick up the one that Rebecca Roanhorse did. So I don't know. Hopefully, I just am intrigued to see adult on Star Wars Expanded Universe. And yeah, I think that's probably most of my first impressions. So maybe that's one last thing we can talk about, is what I do and don't have. So yeah, there was actually a Kindle deal day here in December, kind of before the holidays, where a bunch of these were on sale. So I got, let's say I got A Memory Called Empire on sale that day. I got Here, Now, and Then that day. But so I have both of those as ebooks. I also have Red Rising as an ebook. I already read and DNF'd GIDEON the 9th. I guess maybe we can talk about what I didn't like about that more at some point, you and I, before I take it to the used bookstore. Some of these, like the really long ones, I'm gonna do all of those as audio, so I'm not gonna worry about getting a copy of those. I already have One Word Kill as an ebook. I've got The Light Brigade by Cameron Hurley already coming to me. So the ones that I don't currently have as ebooks, or that I'm not gonna do as audio, I will slowly be acquiring as I need them over the year. So yeah, I think with that being said, I've got my geeky spreadsheet with all the stats, because I want to do, like, I want to see at the end of this year what my ratings are and do some like analysis of things. So yeah, like I went ahead and put my guess as to what I think the subgenre is and a few other things before I've read them. So I will be updating this. I should probably do like, this is my guess, and then afterwards what it actually ends up being like, because I've also made a guess on things like, is there some kind of like diversity included in this? Because I kind of want to see how diverse this list is. I already did one for gender, surprising no one. This is a very male dominated list. Yeah, anyway, so I at the end of the year we will geeky charts. But anyway, I've got my data, my initial data set. I have books in my possession / on the way, and I have my mandate to myself, what it is that I actually like about sci-fi books, so that I can be better about picking good ones for myself, and I can review them better for you guys, because I think right now I I just don't have the language I need to do that as well as I would like. So with all that being said, it is so dark in here. I should just go ahead and wrap this up. I think the next time you'll see me, I'll be actually reading some of these. Okay, so I thought that maybe we could start with talking about the one book that I've already read from this list, which was Gideon the Ninth. It always sounds like I'm saying Giddy the Ninth. I'm saying Gideon the Ninth. And this is one that was on the list and that I had already read and had DNF'd. So I tried a couple of different methods to get through this. I started reading physically, wasn't loving it, moved to the audiobook, still wasn't loving it, and then moved back to the physical book. Actually, particularly, if you're not gonna like the authorial voice of this one, I would specifically steer you away from the audiobook because I think it exacerbates that. What can I say about what I learned from my taste here? Sometimes I like an author's style enough that it can overcome plot problems or character problems. Like, I'm trying to think, like Mariana Zapata in romance. She just has a kind of crackalicious quality to her writing, and there's just something about it that it doesn't, like, even if I end up having problems with the book itself, I still enjoy the experience enough that I can keep going through it. However, there's also authors where the opposite is true, which is I am so just like not into the style that like I can't get through it. I think Catherine M. Valenti is a good example of that, and I think that was something I learned in 2019 in terms of a sci-fi, or, you know, she writes a lot of things that kind of transverse between sci-fi and fantasy, but her books are a lot about style, and it's a style I don't like. I would say that that's probably the same for this book. I didn't dislike the authorial voice or the sort of writing style in this as much as I did for Catherine and Valenti, but I don't feel like there's a lot of substance here, at least in the first, I think I bailed around page 120 or so, and there wasn't enough happening by page 122 for me to really sink my teeth into beyond just the style. I also wasn't really connecting with the characters, so like there wasn't enough happening plot-wise for me to really be that interested, and then the characters especially Gideon, to be totally honest, I wasn't that interested in, so there just wasn't enough here for me. And I think that this is a book, my guess is that people who really like it really like that style, so it carries them through long enough to get to whatever point there actually starts to be a plot. That didn't happen for me, so I didn't end up enjoying this. I think if I had known I was going to do this project when I DNF'd it, I probably would not have DNF'd it and would have forced myself to keep going, but at this point I've already like mentally made that decision that I was going to DNF it, and I'm about to take it to the used bookstore, so I think I've mentally just like decided this isn't happening. So if I tried to make myself read it at this point, I would just resent it, which is just a losing proposition all around. So I'm gonna say I'm DNFing it, and I'm gonna have my takeaway be that in sci-fi, as in other genres, if it's more style than substance, I have to like the style, and if I don't, I'm probably just not gonna like the book. So there you go. That's at least one down already. Okay, we've made it to the new year, and I thought I would give you guys a quick update on my acquisition process. So have I started any books yet? No, I'm going to though. I've got the Light Brigade, which I own. I forget if I showed that to you, but I got the Light Brigade. And then I decided to get Fall by Neal Stephenson as an audiobook because I don't really want to read it physically. And I am bummed that I had to use an Audible credit to do that, but I want to go ahead and give it a try. So I've got both of those. I got one as audio, one physical. And then there was some price drop / I had some gift cards from Christmas. So Recursion has arrived. I got this on a price drop. I think it dropped to like 15 bucks. And then I had some points or some gift card stuff. So I went ahead and picked up THRAWN by Timothy Zahn. And we'll talk about this more when I actually read it, but I went on a little deep dive to try to remember why I know that name. And the TLDR is that I totally read the original THRAWN trilogy when I was a kid. Like, I 100% read that. I read The Courtship of Princess Leia, and then I read some of the Jedi Academy ones. So this, I think will actually be really fun, because I just think that this is a different kind of book than I would ever pick up as an adult. So I'm excited to see kind of how I do with it. So anyway, I am making progress on my acquisitions. The other thing that happened was that I ordered This Is How You Lose the Time War, because it dropped down to $8 one day, and it got stolen because it was delivered when I was out of town for Christmas. So I'm waiting for that book to come back to me. So there's that. But I think I have most of the rest of these books. I don't know. I'll keep you updated, and I'll let you know when I actually get started on one. Okay, I just had a successful outing to the used bookstore. I sold some books back, which was great, but I also happened upon actually a very nice condition Leviathan Wakes. So I went ahead and picked that up. This Is How You Lose the Time War should be coming back tomorrow. That's when it's going to get delivered. Picked that up for like $9 on Amazon, so that was exciting. And then what else? Oh, I'm going to go to Books A Million right now and just see if they happen to have any of the books I'm looking for on sale. So I'm in the neighborhood. So we're doing pretty good on acquiring the books. In theory, I'm supposed to start the audiobook of Fall today, but I'm just not in the mood to listen to an audiobook. My problem is I also really like podcasts, so sometimes if I have a plan to listen to an audiobook, that can get compromised. I'm also just like really in the mood to listen to podcasts, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. It is raining like Armageddon out there. It is thundering so crazily that literally like all the pictures on my wall are shaking off my walls. They did deliver the city in the middle of the night to me. So thank you, Amazon, come rain or shine here. I'm actually a little apprehensive about this one, guys, because the more, like, now that I'm aware of this title, I've been kind of attuned to what people have said about it. I've actually seen several not positive reviews, so I don't know. We'll see how I do with it. Hey, folks. So today was a day. I ended my day so mad. I just sent the most self-righteously angry email I've sent in quite some time. All that to say, what I want to do right now, you know what I want to do right now? I want to curl up with a novella. I'm going to read To Be Taught of Fortunate because it's short. I want to try Becky Chambers, and I just want to read something that is nothing like my reality. So, wish me luck. First book that I'm reading aside from the one I DNF. Okay, so it's the next night. So I was trying to read this book yesterday, and I've made some progress. In terms of the book itself, I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. The writing is beautiful. Like, writing is great. I tend to be someone who focuses on character-driven things in speculative fiction, which is like, I'm finding that to be true more and more. Even just reading what I've read of this book is kind of helped me further cement that. I'm feeling, though, not totally connected to the characters and definitely not totally connected to sort of the setup. So while I appreciate the writing so far, I've not gotten into the book. However, that may be in part because I just stayed mad last night. Like, I was so righteously pissed about this scenario that I was alluding to yesterday. And I was right to be mad. My position is factually correct in this situation. And my read on why they were doing it, I had some idea, but I was just like, I'm tired of this. And like, I wrote my like, here is me being right and like explaining to you all the ways that you were wrong about this. Well, then we had him. And I just stayed mad. Like, I couldn't go to sleep. I was mad about it. And I don't know what's going on with me right now. I think this is me detoxing from my anxiety kick of the last few months. I'm still like stabilizing emotions or moods or whatever, but I was so mad, and so I couldn't really make a lot of progress on this because I couldn't focus. I went to yoga. I was pissed at yoga because it wasn't one of the normal teachers, and she was doing basically like a slow flow instead of a yin, and I was like, this is not why I came to yoga. I came to relax, damn it. So I was just so pissed. And then we got on a conference call today, guys. When I tell you that they told us why they can't do what I needed them to do, I just felt like this tall. It wasn't even that angry of an email. It was not on its face an angry email. I was angry when I wrote it because I had one of my coworkers read. I was like, was I too mad in this? She was like, I didn't even realize you were mad. I just thought you were being direct. And I was like, okay, good. All that to say, struggled to make progress on To Be Taught If Fortunate, which I think is what that's called, the Becky Chambers novella. I've not made as much progress because I just stayed mad. Lesson I'm taking from this: don't send angry emails after work hours. It never pays off. Like, never be angry it's not an angry email. Never be angry and send an email after work hours. Don't try to read when you're pissed. So I'm at, I think, like 30%. I'm gonna polish this off tonight. I'm settled in. That's what we're gonna do. And I'm gonna see if I can get more into the story. Like I said, I think my initial impression is like, oh yeah, like in sci-fi, I'm very character focused the way that I am in a fantasy novel. And there's a lot of sciencey stuff that I'm not as interested in. The same way I would not be interested in a fantasy novel that was super heavy on like the world building and the magic-y stuff. So let's see if I can get more in the flow now that I'm not pissed and I have been humbled and put in my place. Let's see if I can do better. Okay, so I finished as promised. Okay, updated thoughts and things like insights I am taking away. I did get into it a lot more, and I definitely got into the characters, and I think that I'm seeing that Becky Chambers is somebody who can write an ensemble very nicely. I liked how casually diverse this book is. I thought that was cool. The writing, as I think I already mentioned, was like, it's beautiful writing. I think that to me is like kind of my biggest takeaway from her as an author. In terms of my preferences or things I like about science fiction. I think an insight here is that I don't know that I love this like exploring space trope because it makes me real sad and it's just intrinsically kind of a bummer. I think it's hard for it to not be a bummer or for there to be any kind of conflict. I see what she was going for with the ending. I don't know that I thought that was a super strong choice, the ending. I kind of wish she had made a decision. I'm trying not to spoil this, but I think I see what she was going for as the author. As a reader, I would have liked her to have just committed to a decision. So I think I'm going to end up at like 3.5 stars on this one because I really liked parts of this, but I don't know that it was like a favorite. Let me rephrase. It was not a favorite. I guess I'm intrigued to see more of what she does. I don't know that I want something as sort of plotting as this. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. You sense my ambivalence. I am definitely going to try A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet or whatever that series, I think it's called maybe the Wayfarer series, whatever her big popular series is. I will definitely still give that first book a chance. So, this hasn't like put me off from her, and it definitely has grown my appreciation of what she is capable of just sort of on a sentence level. But I don't know this was my favorite, but I do think I learned a couple of things about maybe things I do and don't like about sci-fi. So that's a win. And now I'm less angry, so that's also good. I learned a valuable life lesson over the course of reading this book, so I will remember it for that if nothing else. But that's my first book down. Good job, me. Yay! Hey guys, next up we've got The Light Brigade by Cameron Hurley. So I got this as audio from my library, so we'll see how that goes if I'm into it. If I'm not into it as audio, I'll switch back to physical. But this is, I think, some kind of like military sci-fi, which I wouldn't say is necessarily my gig, but maybe it's about to be my gig. We'll see. Maybe I end up loving this and want to read all the military sci-fi. So stay tuned. End of the day. I did manage to get, I think I'm like midway through the third part of a 9-part audiobook, so let's call it like 25-ish% of the way through The Light Brigade. Initial impressions are I'm very impressed with the writing. I think the writing is really nice. And I'm intrigued about this world. It's not spoon-fed to you, which I think is good. I am still trying to kind of orient myself as to what's actually happening. The details, It seems to be some sort of like post-space exploration caste system on the Earth where you're either a ghoul, a resident, or a citizen. And there's like the corporation, which is like Big Brother kind of a thing. And our main character, Dietz, is going into the army to fight this war with the Martians, who are apparently like more technologically advanced or something. I'm not totally sure. Like I said, I'm a little disoriented, but the writing is so nice. I'm kind of just rolling with it. This is very dark. This is a very dark mood, which I do like in a fantasy. For whatever reason, though, I am finding I struggle with that kind of like bleakness in sci-fi. If it's like futurism, if it's like dystopia, basically, it just makes me real sad in a way that fantasy grimdark doesn't. So I don't know. We'll see if that ends up working for me. But so far, I'm really I'm into this. It's not necessarily I'm about to go to bed. I'm not going to stay up late and finish listening to it or reading it, but enjoying, excited to keep going, should have some time to listen more tomorrow. So yeah, we'll see how I keep doing with it. Okay, so I couldn't put this down and I ended up finishing it. I loved this. So, and this is exactly why it's fun to do challenges like that, because you can get totally surprised. I went into this thinking I think I'll probably like this fine. I love this. Now, I think that the ending is a little pat, and I think that thematically it is too on the nose. So for that reason, for now, I'm not going to give it a 5-star. I think I'm going to sit at a 4.5. But the writing I really love. This is brutal as fuck. This is grimdark. And I got totally immersed in it. I love the thriller kind of component of it. Yeah, if you can't tell, I'm very surprised at how much I love this. Now, I did figure out that Dietz is a lady. It took a while. So it's a she. And I kind of liked not knowing. But anyway, so side note, Dietz is a woman. Yeah, it's interesting because for how much I like this, I think this also clarified to me, I don't think I really like the military thing in space because it makes me so sad. Like a future war, it just bums me out in the way that like grimdark like military fantasy doesn't. Like military, it's sad. Like I'm thinking of saying this reminds me a lot of the Poppy War is probably what I'm trying to get at. The sadness in the Poppy War I can deal with a little bit better because it's technically a fantasy, even though it's based on real things. This makes me sad because I'm like, oh, what a depressing vision of the future. So I think in terms of what I've learned from this book, it's that I don't necessarily love that in theory as a trope. It's not something I think I would probably choose to seek out for the most part, but it obviously can be done very well. So maybe, if I hear of a book where that's the trope and it's getting really good reviews or something, it clearly can be done in a way that I really like. So anyway, this ends up being a lot about time jumping, which is also something I don't always love, but I'm glad I had such a positive experience with a time jumpy kind of book because there's a shit ton of them on this list to come. So anyway, love this. Definitely my favorite so far. So that was 4.5 stars. I gave To Be Taught If Fortunate 3.5, and then I DNF'd GIDEON the 9th. So that's where we are right now. I don't know. I think Recursion might be the one I read next just because, I don't know, it just sounds kind of good to me. So stay tuned. For now, I'm just riding on the afterglow of loving the shit out of this book. I feel like garbage. I look like garbage. So I'm just going to read something fun and short. I've gotten like no reading done the last week because I just feel so bad. And I look awful. Look at all these sits. I don't know what's going on. My stomach is... Anyway, okay. So I'm going to read this. This is my next book in my challenge. I'm expecting to like this. I've actually been seeing a lot of good buzz about this recently, so I'm hoping I'm going to enjoy it, but I don't know. I don't feel like I can focus on a long book, so hopefully this will do the trick. Okay, so... it is later. I am about halfway through this book, which is pretty short. I'm on page 103. I think there's like 200 pages. I'm not really sure what I think about this. The writing I think is beautiful. I don't know that it's connecting with me that much. Here's where I'm at. I think I'm going to feel very similarly about this as I felt about To Be Taught If Fortunate, which is that I admire it, but don't know that I enjoy it that much. It is growing on me the more I go through the book. At first I was like, ooh, I don't know about this, but the characters are growing on me, which I was worried about. I was worried I wasn't going to be connecting with the characters, and that is something I'm finding in this project. The more I go, the more I'm realizing that I really do appreciate character-driven sci-fi much as I do in fantasy. I think the writing quality of this is really high. Basically, this is about two rival time-traveling secret agents, kind of, who work for two different sort of systems. They're not described all that much, and I'm just kind of inferring basically that Red, who is one of the agents, she works for this sort of like very high, like kind of the vision of the future that the Matrix portrays, whereas Blue works for, I don't know, maybe like Avatar, like very earthy, gardeny kind of society or world, and they're falling in love. They're writing letters and they're falling in love. And the writing letters bit is definitely my favorite. I wish that was, that's, you know what, that's true. I wish this entire book was just letters, and I think I would like it better, but that being said, I very much admire the quality of the writing, and yeah, like I said, growing on me in terms of the characters. I wouldn't say though that this is gonna be a favorite the way that it has been for some people, so there you go. Okay, I'm done. Yeah, this grew on me more the more I read it. I will say that. I liked the way that it kind of had a lot of twists and turns towards the end. I like that I don't totally get what was happening in it. Like I was into that kind of disorientation thing. See my previous comments on the Light Brigade. So I think I ended up liking this better than I thought I might. I do still sort of wish this had just been letters, because I think that's where this book really shines. And like the love letter piece of it, I mean, I'm a sap, so I'm probably just a sucker for that anyway. But yeah, I liked all that stuff. Yeah, I don't really know how to sum up my thoughts on this. Maybe I need to sit with it. I want to give this a 3.5, I think, because I didn't love it, but I admire it, and I did end up getting, sort of in the groove with it more than I thought I might. So yeah, I think a 3.5 feels right for this. I don't know, maybe I'll have more thoughts in the future. For now, I just sort of went with the flow. This kind of reminds me of like when I read stream of consciousness novels, where I don't really feel like I'm analyzing it too much. I'm sort of just experiencing it, and that's kind of how this feels. Like the this feels like sort of an experience more than something to really pick apart. So I don't know. I'll let this sit with me. For now, I'm going to call it 3.5. And yeah, I can definitely see why people like this. I just don't know that it's like my kind of sci-fi, much in the same way that I realized that To Be Taught of Fortunate was not really my kind of sci-fi. But hey, that's part of why we're doing this project, is to figure out what I like and what I don't. So, one's down. I'm not sure which one I'm going to read next, actually. Recursion, I think, is the one I put on my TBR this month, the other one, so maybe that will be next. Hey guys, so it is probably about a week since last we spoke. I went out of town, I came back. I am still not feeling great, but I am definitely feeling better than when last we spoke. Also, I just got a haircut, so it's straight right now, which is weird. I've not had my hair straight probably in 2 years, year and a half, I don't know. Anyway, I'm about to start Recursion. It's been a long day of kitty proofing and cleaning up my house, so I just want to kind of curl up with something light and fun. My understanding is that this is like a sci-fi mystery kind of thing where everybody has forgotten things with like a virus. Like everybody gets a virus and it makes them forget things. I think that's the setup. I'm about to find out. I will let you guys know what I think as we go. Okay, guys, this is not going that great for me. So I actually know what the premise is now, which is that we've got a situation where there's something called false memory syndrome, which is some kind of virus that basically makes you have these false memories where you think something has happened in your life, like as vividly as if it had actually happened. Clearly, thematically, this is meant to be exploring, like, what's the difference between reality and not reality if all it is our brains firing in certain ways to make us think something happened? Like, that's going to be the thematic content here, I'm sure. So there's a detective with the NYPD who encounters a woman who is about to kill herself because she has this syndrome, and she tried to go back to her old life and it wasn't real. But there's something about what she said that sits with the detective who's there with her at the time, and he starts to think that maybe her memory was not false. And so he is trying to track that down. His name is Barry, and he's trying to track that down, and things are happening with him. He lost his daughter a long time ago, and that's a very painful memory. So like that's coming into play. And then there's a secondary timeline with this woman named Helena who 10 years earlier, so the main story, or like the more recent story, is Barry. It's set in 2018. Helena's story is taking place in like 2007, 8, 9-ish. And she's a scientist who is trying to develop a way to preserve memories for Alzheimer's patients and to be able to like recreate memories as if they were happening, like completely vividly, to help preserve memory for memory loss patients. But pretty quickly we find out that the group that is funding her research also has some like nefarious purposes in mind for it. And Barry is also getting caught up in something nefarious. Here's the reason why this is not going well, is because it's a dual timeline. You guys know I'm always a little bit of a hard sell on a dual timeline. I am not very attached to any of the characters involved so far. I'm about like a third of the way through this. The characters are okay. It is written in present tense in a way that I don't enjoy. And just generally the writing is not that great. This is a book that if I were not doing it for this challenge, at this point I would DNF, because I'm just not all that interested really in much of anything that's happening, and it's not reading like a comfort read. Basically, like, I think this is probably going to end up being a 2 to 3 star book depending on kind of how things progress, and this isn't really a comfort read for me, so I'm like, I probably normally would just DNF this because I don't want to spend 200 more pages with a 2 to 3 star kind of book. But I will keep going for this challenge. I don't know, I need to try to like have more neutral expectations, because maybe it'll turn around. But it's just kind of okay. It's not that great to me, and the writing is bugging me. I don't know. I'm gonna keep pushing through, because if I put this down, I don't think I'll pick it back up. So I'm gonna try to just go ahead and push through the rest of this tonight. I will let you know where I end up. Okay, I did push through and finish this bad boy up this evening. I will say that I liked this a lot better by the end. I would give it a solid 3 stars. I got more emotionally invested in the characters. It was hard not to, with kind of how the way the story progressed. I do think this helps me concretize, though, something that I kind of intuitively have felt about timeline or time loop type stories. That was part of what delighted me about the Light Brigade, and somewhat how this is how you lose a time war as well, which is, I do think that it can be quite emotional emotionally manipulative time loop stories or like different timeline stories, because it does set up potential conflicts where there's just a lot of pathos and like melodrama involved. And so like, yeah, I was emotionally invested in these people having parallel timelines and, you know, having various degrees of awareness of that and, you know, just the inherent tension of that. But I also think it's kind of a cheap trick. It's not, I mean, like, it does feel a little emotionally manipulative to me. So I appreciate this book helping me kind of be able to put language to that. But I would say that that's part of why I would have told you that I don't really like multiple timeline stories. So take that with a grain of salt for whatever it's worth. I will say though, by the end, I was into it. I liked the way that it wrapped up. I would give it 3 stars. It was fine. The writing I struggled with, like, kind of just period. So I would, like I said, I would have DNF'd this at about the 100-page mark had I not been doing this challenge. I stuck it out. I'm neither glad nor not glad that I did that. So there you go. I will say also, I noticed in the acknowledgements that I believe that Blake Crouch's partner is the same gender as he is. And I will say that in general, I am finding that I am pleasantly surprised that, so my kind of impression was that, and for whatever this says about my awareness of what's happening in the genre, my impression was that sci-fi was very much dominated by sort of like straight cis het white men, and I don't know that any of the books I've read so far don't have it, either the authors or the characters notably not falling into that mode. Yeah, I mean, that's just sort of a pleasant surprise. So I think I'm done with Recursion, and we stand now, let's see here, I think I've read about 5 books so far for this, so I'm about a quarter of the way done, and so far I feel like I'm expanding my horizons. I would say, yeah, this is probably my least favorite of the ones I've read so far, but I didn't have like a miserable time with it. I guess really my least favorite was GIDEON the 9th, because I did actually DNF that one. But of the ones I finished, this is my least favorite, but it wasn't bad. It just wasn't quite my thing. So yeah, I feel like this is going pretty well so far. So I am going to settle in with an episode of It's Me or the Dog before I fall asleep, and I will catch you in the next book. Okay, so time for my next book. I just brought home some kittens in my laundry room here. And I'm hanging out with them and letting them get used to my presence. So I'm gonna sit in here and read with them, and I thought that this would be a good time to do my next pick. So I think I'm gonna start with One Word Kill by Mark Lawrence. It is, I think, some kind of like rompy sci-fi situation, like space something. I don't really know. I think it was maybe YA. I think it's pretty short, so I think I'm going to give that one a try as my next pick. If I'm not in the mood once I start getting into it, I might switch over to The Deep by Rivers Solomon. So I don't know. We'll see what I'm feeling, but it's time for my next one. I hope it goes better than Recursion, because that one was only just like meh. Okay, so I am about a quarter of the way through, and I'm into this. I wouldn't say I'm like dying to keep going, but I'm, you know, I think this is interesting enough. So the setup is that, sorry, I'm trying to talk in dulcet tones so as to not disturb the kitties too much, because they are just so scared. It's really sad. They've had traumatic lives so far. Hopefully they're about to have a very happy and cushy life with me. But anyway, so setup is there's a boy in England in the mid-80s, and he has been diagnosed with cancer, like a very deadly form. His chances of surviving are like 50-50. His chemo, and he is kind of like a nerd, like a D&D nerd. So there's the back of cover described this as Ready Player One meets Stranger Things. So far I'm more seeing the Stranger Things vibe. It's very that. So they're all playing D&D together, and he has been keeping the fact that he has cancer from his friends, and he just told them at the point I'm at in the book. But anyway, so he also has seen this strange man following him around, and he had one moment during a chemo treatment where he thought he went back in time and then decided that must have been a hallucination. So if I'm guessing, right now, my guess is that the man who's following him around might be him from the future, and that this is some sort of time travel thing. Yet again, a time travel thing. This seems to be a very popular theme right now for the most popular books in sci-fi, and as we have discussed, I don't know that it's my particular favorite, but this is a very well-written book, and because it's not that long, like, I'm gonna go with it, and I'm not like mad about reading it. I mean, well, I don't know what I would rate it yet. It's too early to say, but so far, fine, interesting, going with it. We'll see what happens. Hey, so it is a couple hours later, and I finished reading One Word Kill. So I actually quite ended up liking this one. I definitely like this version of a time travel-y kind of book much better than Recursion. I liked it better than This Is How You Lose the Time War. Definitely not as much as the Light Brigade, but so I guess that would make it like fourth of all of these GD time travel books I'm having to read. I thought that it goes some interesting places. I thought the explanation behind the time travel was one of the better ones in terms of like the multiverse kind of a thing. And it explained things, but it didn't try to over-explain them. I don't know. I just, like, I liked this. I think I'm just realizing that I'm pretty picky about a time travel book, and I definitely don't want to have to read a ton of them back to back to back. And I know I've got at least 2 more in this project, so maybe I need to try to space those out to be a little further out. But all that to say, I actually did quite like One Word Kill. I really liked the writing. I thought that was very solid. I really liked characters in this one a lot. It does have a very strong Stranger Things vibe to it, so do with that what you will. But, you know, it has sort of like a thriller mystery kind of plot engine in it. And all around, I just thought it was like a really effective little book. So I would get somewhere between a 3.5 and a 4. I did like it quite a bit better than This Is How You Lose the Time War or To Be Taught If Fortunate. So, you know what? Let's go ahead and give it a 4-star because, like, I had a good time in it. I'm not sure if I would read more in this. There's 2 more books. If it's the same plot line, I'm not sure if I would keep reading in the series because I really liked how it all wrapped up. If it's a different plot line but the same world, then maybe I'd be more into that. So I don't know, maybe I would keep going in the series. But yeah, another one down, another one bites the dust. I do think the next one I'm going to read is going to be The Deep by Rivers Solomon, which I believe is not time travel but is instead an alternate history with some like weird components to them. Like as a genre, there's a genre of like weird sci-fi. I think that's kind of what this is. So yeah, I think that will be what's up next. Well, hey there. It has been a month since last we talked, and in that month I had emergency surgery, and yeah, didn't make any progress on reading for this challenge. I have also subsequently started putting the footage together and realized that this is going to be interminably long if I went with my original plan, which was to break it into 2 parts. So I'm going to break it into 3, and I'm going to go ahead and say this first section is done. It has all the setup, and then I think I read 5 books, and then I'd already DNF'd 1, so 6 books total through the challenge. So roughly a third seems like a reasonable place to kind of break it up. So stay tuned. I'm going to continue on this challenge for the rest of the year. My next book up is The Deep by Rivers Solomon because it's fitting into a challenge that I'm doing, or the magical readathon that I'm doing in April. So that's the next one up. But I'm going to leave you guys here and stay tuned. We will keep reading these Goodreads SF Award nominees. So let me know what you guys have thought about any of the books that I have read so far, any books that you are excited or trepidatious about me reading going forward based on the list. And yeah, I think that will do it for now. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below. And I think that will do it. I hope you are having an absolutely lovely day today, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye!